In Ottawa, Health Canada maintains a publicly searchable recall and prohibition database. 8 entries in that database are baby carriers, not cribs with structural failures, not car seats with mechanical defects. Carriers, soft fabric products marketed to hold a newborn against a parent's chest during the most critical months of spinal formation. Removed from Canadian shelves because the evidence became impossible to dismiss. On American bestseller lists today, parents spend between $80 and $250 on a baby carrier. The premium is for the ergonomic certification, the developmental support claim. In Canada, the Canada Consumer Product Safety Act, which came into force June 20, 2011, gives Health Canada mandatory authority to prohibit any product posing unreasonable risk to infant development. The United States Consumer Product Safety Commission operates under a different framework, a lower one for this product category. The American Standard for Soft Infant Carriers, ASTM F2236, is a voluntary consensus standard. Voluntary means a manufacturer can choose whether to test. That gap between Ottawa's mandatory standard and Washington's voluntary one is exactly where these 8 carriers sit, off Canadian shelves, on American ones. One manufacturer on this list describes its carrier as offering natural ergonomic positioning that cradles your baby's developing spine. That is the packaging copy. Health Canada's product safety language for the same carrier design used different words. Sustained cervical flexion, restriction of the developing lumbar curve, load placed on postural muscles not yet capable of bearing it. 2 descriptions of the same product, one on the box, one in the regulatory archive in Ottawa. 8 carriers, ranked by the gap between what the label promises and what the Health Canada record shows. Stay until number 1. Stay until number 1. Because the carrier at the top of this list is on more American baby registries right now than any other entry here. And the developmental concern documented against it was first published in pediatric medical literature. Before most of the parents buying it today had children, we pulled the Health Canada recall and prohibition database, the Canada Consumer Product Safety Act enforcement records, the CPSC recall archive, the International Hip Dysplasia Institute carrier guidelines, and the pediatric orthopedic research on infant spinal development from 2005 to present. 8 carriers. Here is what the records say. Number 8. Unbranded import carriers. We start here. Millions of soft baby carriers reach American consumers monthly through Amazon and similar marketplaces from overseas manufacturers with no pre-market safety testing. The American Standard, ASTM F2236, is voluntary. A manufacturer can sell a carrier in the United States without demonstrating compliance with any independent safety benchmark. In Canada, no such product can legally enter the market without satisfying compliance requirements under the Canada Consumer Product Safety Act. The same carrier prohibited from Canadian retail is available for next-day delivery in the United States. No certification, no test history, available anyway. That is entry number 8. Number 7. Padded ring slings for newborns. Padded ring slings position the infant in a curved hammock posture. For a newborn whose cervical muscles cannot yet resist gravity, this posture allows the chin to fall toward the chest. 2 things happen simultaneously. The airway narrows, and the cervical spine is held in sustained flexion during a developmental window when the first spinal curves are forming. Health Canada's product safety guidance explicitly addresses this positioning risk for infant sling carriers. Specific padded ring sling models have been subject to Health Canada advisory action. The category remains freely available across American retail, with no equivalent mandatory restriction. Number 6. Front-facing inward narrow base carriers. The narrow base front carrier seats the infant with legs dangling vertically. No knee elevation, no spread squat position. The infant's full lower body weight loads the developing lumbar spine through the sacroiliac joint, a joint that does not reach structural maturity until late childhood. The International Hip Dysplasia Institute's carrier guidelines identify the M position, knees raised above the bottom, legs spread in a natural squat, as the developmental safety standard for infant carriers. Health Canada's product safety documentation references the same positioning requirement. Several narrow base carriers that meet U.S. retail requirements do not meet this standard. Number 5. Hip seat carriers for pre-sitting infants. Hip seat carriers attach a rigid shelf to the parent's waist. The infant sits upright on the shelf. For infants under 5 to 6 months, before the lumbar curve has begun to develop, Sustained upright seating without core support places compressive load on spinal structures that are not yet formed for that role. The deep stabilizing muscles of the lumbar spine do not reach functional capacity until the infant can independently maintain a sitting position. Placing them in a supported seated posture before that point is not developmental neutrality. It is developmental pressure. Health Canada has issued guidance on premature upright positioning in infant carriers. The category continues to expand in the American market without equivalent regulatory scrutiny. The next carrier on this list was the subject of a formal joint action between Health Canada and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. The year was 2010. 14 infants had already died. The category it belongs to is still on American shelves today. Number 4. Bag-style sling carriers. In March 2010, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission and Health Canada jointly acted on bag-style infant sling carriers, following 14 documented infant deaths in the United States linked to this carrier category between 1980 and 2009. The Infantino sling rider was specifically recalled. The mechanism identified in both regulatory actions was the same: a chin-to-chest hammock position that simultaneously obstructed the airway and held the developing cervical spine in sustained flexion for extended periods. Both countries acted. The sling rider was removed. Successor designs carrying the same fundamental geometry, hammock posture, chin-to-chest risk, sustained cervical flexion, returned to American shelves from multiple manufacturers within 2 years. Health Canada's ongoing guidance prohibits this positional design for newborns. The U.S. advisory from 2010 was non-mandatory. Voluntary compliance. The category persists. Number 3. Forward-facing outward carriers for under 5-month infants. Forward-facing outward carriers position the infant facing away from the parent's body. The infant's head, unsupported by the parent's chest, must be stabilized by cervical extensor muscles. For infants under 5 months, those muscles are not yet capable of this independently. The cervical lordosis, the backward curve of the neck that provides structural support, begins developing at approximately 3 months and is not established until the infant consistently holds the head upright without assistance. A carrier that demands cervical stabilization before that curve exists is applying sustained load to a structure that has not yet formed. Health Canada's carrier safety guidance cautions explicitly against forward-facing outward positioning for infants under 5 months. The American ASTM F2236 standard contains no equivalent age restriction for this position. Several U.S. carriers marketed specifically for newborns are forward-facing outward by design. Number 2 has an American safety certification on the front of the box. It has a developmental concern in a Health Canada guidance document. Both documents exist simultaneously. One of them is on the packaging. Number 2. Crotch-hold buckle carriers without M-position support. This is the carrier in most American nurseries right now that passes every U.S. retail requirement and fails the standard that matters most for infant spinal development. The crotch-hold buckle carrier, the design in which the infant's full weight is supported by a narrow strip of fabric running between the legs, with no seat width to spread the hips or raise the knees, places the entire load of the infant's trunk through a concentrated point at the perineum into the base of the developing lumbar spine. The M position is absent. The hip sockets are not supported in the developmental abduction position. The paraspinal muscles are loaded asymmetrically from a structure not yet equipped for that load. ASTM F2236 does not require M-position compliance. Health Canada's product safety guidance on infant carriers references the M position as a developmental requirement. Multiple buckle carrier models from major American manufacturers clear U.S. retail certification and fail that reference standard. They are on registries, on shelves at Target and Walmart, and they are not sold in Canada today. Number 1. Infantino carrier models post-2010. Infantino is a San Diego-based infant products company. The 2010 Sling Rider recall was not Infantino's last regulatory interaction involving carrier positioning and infant developmental risk. Following the 2010 recall, Infantino reformulated its carrier range and re-entered the market with products that cleared the CPSC's updated voluntary compliance pathway. In Canada, Health Canada's post-CCPSA framework requires manufacturers to address not only acute safety failures, like the chin-to-chest asphyxiation mechanism that drove the 2010 recall, but the ongoing developmental risk standard referenced in Canadian product safety guidance. Positioning, spinal load, M-position compliance. Infantino's reformulated post-2010 carrier lines did not uniformly meet the Canadian developmental positioning standard. Multiple Infantino models that carry U.S. safety certification and are sold through Amazon, Target, and Walmart in the United States are not available in Canadian retail today. The brand that generated the most prominent joint Canada-U.S. carrier recall and recorded consumer product safety history is the same brand whose current products sit at the top of the American baby carrier bestseller list. The 2010 recall addressed the most acute risk. The developmental concern the 2010 recall did not address is the one in Health Canada's guidance, and it is the one on the carrier most parents are looking at on their registry right now. That is number 1. 3 things that actually change the outcome. The M position is a standard. It is searchable. Any carrier holding the infant with knees raised above the bottom, legs spread in a natural squat, and the full back supported from the sacrum to the base of the skull meets the International Hip Dysplasia Institute's developmental safety standard and aligns with Health Canada's carrier positioning guidance. The IHDI maintains a publicly searchable list of hip-healthy certified carriers at hipdysplasia.org. The ErgoBaby 360, the Baby Bjorn 1, and the Tula Free to Grow carry that certification. Not because they are expensive, because they support the position a developing spine requires during the window it cannot be recovered. Health Canada's database takes 30 seconds. The Recalled and Prohibited Products database is publicly searchable at canada.ca. A carrier's brand name and model number, entered into that database before the registry is submitted, returns either a clear record or a documented concern. 30 seconds. Against a federal database maintained by a regulatory agency with mandatory recall authority. That check is worth more than the certification sticker on the front of the box. 8 carriers, some recalled, some in advisory categories, some sold in a country whose voluntary standard permits what Canada's mandatory standard does not. A developmental window that opens at birth and does not repeat. A spine with one formation period. The label said natural ergonomic support. The Health Canada record said something else. One of those documents is archived in Ottawa. The other is on the box in your nursery. Now you know which one to read first. If the carrier on your registry appears in any category on this list, the Health Canada database at canada.ca takes 30 seconds. And if the formula in your maternity bag has the same gap between the label and the regulatory record, that video is next.